Thank you very much, and thank you to Reed Corporate for putting on the day. I will note that the previous speaker, Ken Brinsden's hard act to follow. His project that he keeps referencing, Pilgangoora, is about 50 kilometres from a project that I've been involved with at De Grey Mining, and De Grey has managed to achieve a $2 billion market cap. Pilbara Minerals got to 15 billion or so he's been a great performer, and that was quite a good story at Patriot. So you will hear a bit more about that, some of my history into the future. But today I'm here, I know there'll be some shareholders of De Grey here because we've got a pretty good presence in Melbourne through a couple of former directors of the company. And part of my job is to try and convince you to actually follow that and support us into Nimy as well. So you'll hear a lot today about lithium. It can get a bit boring by the end of the day, lithium. Nickel is also absolutely in the EV metals market, and the example I use, I was at a conference recently, they were talking about lithium, but if you want to increase the distance that your car battery can go, you need to get it up from 70 kilowatt hours to 100 kilowatt hours, and to get it to that level, you're going to need nickel. So nickel is absolutely part of the EV revolution and is equally in short supply as we look forward, which we've got a couple of charts on coming through. You can read the disclaimer at your leisure. So the important thing on this slide here, that's showing my fellow directors and myself, but with due respect to them, consulting geologist Fergus Jockle. Fergus is a very senior geologist. He's been around the traps, I guess, and we're fortunate to have him. Why? Geologists are hard to come by in Australia, and if there's any geologists in the crowd that want a job, come and tap us on the shoulder. We'd happily have you. Fergus with his experience, but you know what? Fergus also doesn't like coming and doing these sorts of things. He's up in Muckenbooden at the moment. He likes walking the tenement area, kicking the rocks, etc. And I think that's what you need in a geologist. So even with his experience, he loves nothing more than being out in the country and doing that sort of work. So yes, we're fortunate to have Fergus on board. So look, this is the first slide about the nickel requirements, and if you look at the slide on the left with the light blue, that's showing lithium new projects required by 2030 to meet the demand anticipated. That's one set of global supply issues by that group that you can see at the bottom. Is it correct? I think there's some people that would say they've underestimated the requirement for for lithium. On the right, next to that in the red box, you'll see the nickel requirements for additional mines. I've got no idea what tonnage tonnage of metal they're considering, and whether they're considering shutting other nickel projects, etc. But that shows there's an additional 60 mines required, or 60 projects perhaps, by 2030 to meet their current estimate of demand. And that's nickel is not a common metal. It's common in that there's quite a bit of it within, but to find a good nickel discovery is equally as good as a good gold discovery, and it reacts just as well. So if we get some good nickel hits, our market capitalisation increases very, very quickly. So what we're going to be talking about is massive sulphides, which is the higher grade nickel. We're chasing those. Komatiite flows. Think of things like Mount Keith in Western Australia. That's been operating for 35 years at a mid-grade, if you like, nickel. Semi-massive sulphides, that's where the Mount Keiths of the world are, and disseminated sulphides. And you'll see in the next slide that there's a lot of low-grade projects that are now being recognised as projects, and I would suggest that Nimy could probably already point to one of those if it wished to. But we have the opportunity to target all three of those. I will say the other issue is that, and I meant to mention it with Fergus Jockle, just mentioned previously, he and I worked at a project called Mount Weld that some of you may have heard of, currently owned by Lynas. It used to be owned by Anaconda Nickel many, many years ago, and we have a Mount Weld lookalike in our opinion, so we've also got some rare earths and the other goodies that Mount Weld has. We've got those opportunities too, but we are first and foremost a nickel explorer. So this bubble chart is showing that down here on the right, you've got your large tonnage, lower grade nickels. Up here, you've got your massive sulphide nickels in the red, and then you've got your semi-massive sulphides in the yellow. So you can see the yellow tend to be heading down in grade and tonnages. The massive sulphides are few and far between. You'd love Kabanga, but it's in Tanzania, and Tanzania is not the destination that it used to be. The issue here is that here's Mount Keith, here's Yakabindi, Honeymoon Well. They're all existing projects in Western Australia, and if you were showing this bubble slide 30 years ago, just after these projects had come into production, you would probably be cutting it off here. Who's to say that that trend, these are the projects that potentially are going to give you a 50-year project with X thousand tonnes of contained metal. So maybe that chart is gradually moving down. I'm not saying that we're going to get down to these economics, but who's to say we're not? And I always use the example in the gold sector that Australia's largest gold mine is at Boddington, and they're currently mining at 0.4 grams per tonne, which would have been unheard of 35 years ago. So it's a lot of earth to move to get 0.4 grams out. So, as I said, we could probably point to, I think, being somewhere around here. If we did a drill program and said we want to get an inferred resource somewhere in here, we could probably do that already with what we have. We are still targeting the massive sulphides, the semi-massive sulphides, and the komatiites. Mount Keith is a komatiite. So where are we? It's the Mons Nickel project. I did mean to add, I always start with this and I forgot to. I'm sorry, Ken Brinson put me off perhaps. Nimy resource is why we called Nimy. It's got NI at the start. That's nice. It's a nickel start. But Nimy is a bridge, and it was the site of the first battle in World War I in Belgium, the Nimy Bridge. And my directorial colleague, Luke Hampson, had a relative who died at the Nimy Bridge and won a VC. So that's why he named it Nimy when it started. Now, is it relevant to nickel? Not overly, but I think it's a nice story. So it was part of what got me interested in it. So the Mons project, where you can see Perth here, we're 350 kilometres to the northeast in this region here. We're on the same trend as Forrestania to the south. The Forrestania belt, you and me, is up in here. Same geological trend. So. And you can see the similarities perhaps to the Cambolda trend up into the Leinster belt across here. A benefit is that we have a contiguous tenement package. These are all the tenements that we currently have granted, and these ones are pending. It's a large tenement package, 2,500 square kilometres. One of the stories that I always have here, in fact I'll probably maybe in the next slide, anyway, so it's a large package, contiguous, it's all in the same area. We don't have to worry about travelling between countries or even going over to Canada, etc. So we can be up and back in a day. It's not easy territory up there at the moment. It has been underexplored, but yeah, we're up and back within a day to get there. So if I go to the next slide. So when we first started, this is what it was showing in the maps in the Mines Department in WA, which is really just identifying it as granite. We've now identified it as greenstone belt. I will say that through my time at De Grey, one of the things, and some of you that might have heard me present there, we used to be presenting, is that De Grey is in the Pilbara Craton, not in the Yilgarn Craton. There are two cratons in WA. The Yilgarn hosts Kalgoorlie, and it's been a huge supplier of gold over a long period of time. And our presentation was always, well, the Pilbara Craton and the Yilgarn Craton are the same age rocks, same greenstone belt, same style of mineralisation. Why wouldn't there be any gold up there? And De Grey at the moment, we have proven that in the last couple of years we've got 10.8 million ounces. At the same time, luminaries such as Andrew Forrest told me at one stage, Simon, there's no gold in the Pilbara, you're wasting your time. And that's not the first, he's not the only one that I've heard that comment from, and we've certainly proven him wrong. So then I moved forward to this project here, and a grumpy metallurgist that I used to know, he said, oh, if it's underexplored, it means there's nothing there. The implication being that the old timers, when they were exploring, they were pretty good explorers actually, and if the old timers couldn't find it, there probably wasn't anything there. Well, I point to De Grey and that there's no gold in the Pilbara, and we've proven that wrong. I'd point to shortly after our discovery, Chalice, found Julimar. Erahidi has got a terrific project, and it's just showing that within the Western Australian context, there is a lot still to be discovered. And in this zone that we're at, again, we're in the Yilgarn Craton, same greenstone belt, same rocks, very strong background of nickel mineralisation. You'd be surprised if we don't find anything. I need to move forward quickly. So these are our main targets, and this was Luke who put the package together. This is what I call his home paddock, and hence these are the sort of targets that he's identified and spent a lot of time putting together. But it's a small part of our overall tenement package, and one of the tasks we're going to do is have a better look at the overall package. We've tied up the belt in that region and find other targets. At the moment we're saying we've got 30 targets over 6 areas. The reality is there'll be a lot more targets by the time we've finished doing some of that. But what we'd point out here is these are a series of diamond holes. We took the bit between the teeth, perhaps a bit hairy-chested, and did a whole lot of diamond drilling to find basement. Some of these, such as this one here, 871 metres, didn't find basement. It was still in mineralisation at the end of it all, and that's reflected in some of the grades that you'll see shortly. These are probably 3 of the main projects or prospects that we have drilled. I'll just focus on this one, the Gossan project. But if you look here, this is what I'm saying, we're getting this very strong background of nickel and nickel-sulphide. So 363 metres, very consistent. Now, as I noted, I'm not saying that 0.14% is economic or indeed that it's going to excite you, but 363 metres is a very wide intersection. These numbers here are quite important. The magnesium oxide, that's what's indicating that we're in a komatiite flow as much as anything. So, you know, what we've got to do is work out now the concentration, where these are concentrating. Now you can see part of it. We've also discovered a Gossan. Now Gossans were part of the Kambolda discovery back in the Poseidon boom in the late 60s. They've also been part there within the Forestania area with the Forestania discovery, which is perhaps a more recent discovery. The fact that we've got a Gossan is seen as a very big positive from the geologists who know these things. The assays that we've had from the initial drilling in the Gossan are showing elevated numbers of nickel, 0.48%. Remembering it's intersecting the Gossan quite shallowly, so that's in a weathered zone. As we drill deeper into the fresh rock, if we can get those numbers up, we are really onto something, and that's part of the next drilling program. We'll be targeting that Gossan, as well as these. We've found some plates which will come on into the next slide. But this number here, this is drilled through a plate and we've gone on, that's the deeper hole, the 800 metres, 487 metres of nickel copper mineralisation beyond it. We're waiting those assay results and they should be released reasonably shortly. Again, it's possibly more of the same. We're not expecting anything to be outstanding there necessarily, but it's going to be showing ongoing nickel copper mineralisation, and that finished in mineralisation with the numbers. I think we're getting better at the end of hole from an XRF gun, I should just point out. So, and the Gossan's carrying nickel, copper and cobalt, which is consistent with what you'd expect of a Gossan. So very excited. That will be part of the next drilling program. These are the various conductor plates that we've identified that are also part of the next drilling program. Here's your Gossan up here. It's the horseshoe shaped thing, and that's, as I've just noted, that's where we'll be concentrating our drilling program. We've got 5 electromagnetic conductor plates. We're still doing some modelling on that, so we're expecting to get more, but those conductor plates, if we hit them, that could be where the big ones are. So that's all going to be coming up in January, as well as some ongoing electromagnetic work. As I say, just moving forward quickly, that's the Gossan project again, and you can see we've got 3 plates in that horseshoe structure. So that is what we're very much targeting. So this is one, Fergus and I, as I said, worked at the Mount Weld project. This is the Mount Weld magnetic signal here. This is a carbonatite that we have found. It's remote to the rest of our project area, as is Mount Weld. If any of you have been out there, it really stands on its own as a structure. And there's clear similarities. You can see a dike going through our structure and a dike going through the Mount Weld structure with their rare earth project. We don't know what's in there, in all honesty. Carbonatites can sometimes not carry mineralisation, but it's something that's come from deeper in the Earth system. It will also be part of the next drilling program, and we'll also have results coming through. Recent example of a carbonatite that was drilled was a company called WA1 that went from 30 cents to $2.30. So if we have success with this, the market will react. It'll show rare earths, niobium, phosphates. You can go to the WA1. Their second hole was absolutely moving in the right direction, and that could be quite an exciting project as well. I think that's the timeline moving forward. Basically drilling in January, February, March, results coming through March, April, May from that drilling. Assay results, we've still got outstanding results coming through, so we will have quite a bit of news flow coming through, and I think that's about it. That's a quick summary of where we're at. I hope I've covered everything reasonably well. I'll be told if I haven't. So we're in the booth later on. If there's any questions, please come and see us. Thank you very much.